Okay, so we are hitting 7.4 in percents. And so we're going to hit some of these a little bit, maybe a longer video, I'm not sure yet. Let's go ahead and start off with what we want to know about percents. Okay, so percents is a special kind of fractions, namely fractions with a denominator of 100. They're all based, your percent's always going to be based off 100. Okay, the percent number is whatever number divided by 100. Okay? The word percent comes from per centium, which means per 100. Okay. Now n is going to be always a non-negative. We don't have negative percents or numbers, usually over 100%, but that is possible. All right, so write each of the following as a percent. Okay, I want to write things as a percent. If you remember, decimal-wise, if it's over 100, that's 3 over 100, right? And if it's 3 over 100, okay, that's going to be the number on top, which is 3, is going to be the percent, so it's 3%. Okay, 3 repeating, remember, would be, if I move it over 2 places, would make it 33333, and make it 33.3 repeating percent. Okay, decimals, you can always just move 2 places to the right, and you get your percent, 120%. 2 places to the right, and we get 0.042%. 1, if my decimal is right after the 1, 1, 2, 1 is always going to be 100%. Anything over 1 is always over 100%. 3/5, you would have to actually, well, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can put it as decimal, or you can put it as a fraction. Okay, either way, you're going to get 60%. Okay, now how does that come about? Where are we at here? Okay, so how do we get that 30%? Well, if you want, you could multiply this by 20. Multiply this by 20. You would get 60 over 100, which would be your 60%. Now, what if you can't multiply anything by 3 to get to 100? Well, at that point, you got to divide. 3 into 20, or 2, and that would be, what is 6? And notice right there, we get that repeat number, that 2 again. So this is just going to be 6 repeating. And so if it's 6 repeating, we're going to get 66.6 repeating decimal. And then this one, you would want to, again, go ahead and put it in the fraction form. Okay, I would, or put it in decimal form, actually. And then go ahead and move it over, and you get 214.27%, or 0.27%, excuse me. I said that wrong. Okay, now how do we go about getting that? I would probably make that into a mixed fraction, which would be 15 over 7, first and foremost, and then do 7 to 15. There's the 2 point, that's why, be 14, 1, there's the 1, 7, get a 3, so into 30 is going to be 4, 28, subtract that, we get a 2, so into 20 would be, what, another 2, okay, and so forth. Now, what you can do, how they got theirs is when they got to that 2, they did 2 sevens. And that's where it came through. Okay. All right. So writing these as decimals. So in these cases, you would actually move the decimal 2 to the left, 0.05, 2 to the left, 0.063. Now, decimal here, so to the left, that would make it a 1. To the left, 2.5. Now, you would actually have to put that in decimal form first, and then move it. put this in decimal form first, and then move it. Okay, those simple as those. Okay. So applications: finding percent of a number, finding what percent of the number is another, finding the number when a percent of that number is known. Okay, so a house sells for $92,000, requires 20% down payment. What's the amount of down payment? I need to know 20% of 92,000. Okay, now how do I deal with that? Well, that's going to be 20% times 92,000, and we can only work percentages as decimals. Okay, so that's going to be 0.2 times 92,000, which is 18,400, and that is its down payment. Okay, the word of a lot of times is going to be multiplication. Okay, now another way of dealing with this is what we used to call is over of is equal to percent over 100. And you'd have the percent over 100, so that's going to be 20 over 100. Okay, and you want 20% of 92,000. And the word, anything that follows the word of is always going to be on the bottom. So 92,000, and X on top, and cross multiply and divide. You still end up with that number there. Okay, so that's another way of dealing with things. Okay, if Alberto, okay, has 45 correct answers out of on a 80 question test, what's the percent of answers that are correct? Okay, so he needs to find out what the percent of 80 is 45. Basically, it's 45 over 80. And here's your is over of thing. Just not called is over of. Is of percent over 100. You notice what follows the word of is 80. And then now this is not always the number right after the word is. It can be anywhere. It's what I call my leftovers. That's always my percent. We're trying to find the percent. So you just cross multiply and divide, and you get this. And now we got to change that to percent. And so it's 56.25%. Okay, 42% of the parents of a school, children in Pakistan, are employed at the university. If the number of parents employed by the university is 168, how many parents are there in the school? Okay, so we have 42%. So that's my percent. So it's 42 over 100. That's percent over 100. And then how many of the parents are in the school district, right? So if the number of parents at the university is this, how many in the school district? Okay, so in this case, this would be your 168 over X. You're trying to find the word of. Okay? So as you plus everything in, you're going to get 400. Okay? Plus that also helps part over whole. You know there's more parents in the school district, so than there are the employees, so that also helps. All right, skis at a sports store near Humphrey Summit are sell for $476. If the original price was $560, what percent of it was discounted? Okay, so if the original price was $560 and the new price is $476. The skis are discounted for $84. The discount would have been taken with the original price, so we need to find the percent of $84 of 560. So 84 divided by 560 is 0.15, is 15%, 15% discount. Okay, here's your mental math. Now these do come in handy. These are the ones you want your kids to know. Okay, the fractions are great. Any percent whole number can be put over 100, right? So, and then reduce. But 66.6 is 2/3, 3 repeating is 1/3, and then of course these guys, they should know. Okay. We're going to kind of go through the mental ones here. Let me get to these other ones. Okay, which of the following could be true and which are false? Leonardo got a 10% raise at the end of the first year job and then a 10% raise of another on the next year. His total raise was 20%. True or false? Okay. That would be false. And the reason being is when he gets the 10% raise, he's going to have more money than he started with. And so then when you take 10% of the new rate after the first raise, that 10% is going to be more than the first 10%. So it's not a total of 20%. Okay, John and Dina paid 45% of the first department store bill for $620, 48% of the second bill. They paid a total of 93% of the total bill of $1,000. That again is false. Okay, because those are 45% of a different value than 48% of a different value. So they do not work hand in hand. Bill spent 25% of his salary on food and 40% on his housing. Bill spent 65% of his salary on food and housing. That is true. In a town, 65% of the adult population works in town, 25% works on the border, 15% are unemployed. And everyone in town is exactly one of these categories. True or false? That is false. Okay, that would not cover everybody. Okay, that is, let's see here, because this is what, not 65, 70, 90, over 100%. That's what it is. In Clean City, the fine and for various pollution activities, certain percent of one's monthly income. The fine for smoking in public places, 40%. For driving polluted cars, 50%, and littering is 30%. Mr. Schultz committed all three pollution crimes in one day and paid a fine of 120% of his monthly income, and that is true. Not a very smart dude, but it's true. All right, so computing interest. Suppose you borrow $6,000 from a bank at simple interest rate of 5% to be paid off in 2 years from now. Okay, so $6,000 is how much you get. That's what we call the principal. Okay, 5% is your interest rate. Okay? And the period of the loan is the amount of time you owe the money, 2 years in this case. All right, so we got principal, rate, and the amount of time. Simple interest means this interest will only be computed on the principal for the stated time of the loan. Okay, now what that means is the following. You're only paying the interest for the amount of the loan. The most of your interest is that you're going to get, you're going to be paying interest on the interest sometimes. So it carries over monthly. Okay, now simple interest formula is interest is equal to PRT. Okay? The interest that you're going to pay, just the interest, and the principal rate is the interest rate, and the number of years. Now remembering that your rate is always your percentage, which we never use percentage, we use the decimal form. Okay, the formula for the total amount total amount would be the principal plus the interest. In other words, if you use simple interest formula, the total amount you're going to pay is principal plus that interest. Okay? Or sometimes you'll see this formula for compound interest. Okay? If you're open a savings account, pay simple interest, so we use that formula at 5.25%. If she deposits $2,000 and makes no other deposits, find the interest in the final amount of 90 days. Okay, now here's what you have to do, because so you have the 2,000, your 5.25% would be 5.25%, which is 0.0525, and then your time is in years. So 90 days would be 90 out of 365 days, okay, which means you have to find that point. Now your calculator can do this for you, and you get $25.89, which means the total amount after 90 days they're going to have to pay is $2,225.89. That's amount plus interest. Okay. All right. The amount of interest rate if a principal of $10,000 is increased to $10,900 in 1 year. In other words, how much interest was paid? Well, that'd be $900, right? So you had to pay $900. We're trying to find what the rate of that account was. Right? So we're trying to find what percentage of 10,000 is 900. Okay, so you can do percent over 100. It's 900 over 10,000, which is going to be 9%. So you can use the is over O in that case. Also works very nicely. Okay, hope all this helps with simple interest, and we got one more to go. Hopefully be to you soon.